The year is 1987. The location is Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. And the occasion is your F-14A Tomcat Squadron is heading there for a training det to fight against the aggressors there. So for those of you who are DCS fans, you're going to love this. This is an interview with the creators of the new Zone 5 DCS campaign released by Eagle Dynamics and created by Reflected Simulations. And I get to interview the two main players in the show. So hang off the ride. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. We'll be back soon.
Nellis ground, sniper full flight, ready to taxi for call. Sniper 4, Nellis ground, taxi Foxtrot Alpha, cross runway 0321,
Hi, I'm Dave Baranek, call sign Bio. I have 2,500 flight hours as an F-14 RIO and was an instructor in the Fighter Tactics and Weapons School for 2.5 years in the 1980s. I've teamed up with Reflected Simulations to bring this training experience to DCS. Welcome to Zone 5.
Recorders on, flight stop.
Watch it! 6 o'clock! 6 o'clock! Come on, show that pilot kit!
Turn it down. Hammer radar contact bearing 260 for 30. Roger, same. Copy, all. Recorders on, flight on. On lock on, left 8 o'clock high. Leopard 3, Fox 1. Warship 25 miles. Income goes on. Time complete. All flights RTV. Sniper 3, knock it off. RTV.
Hey DCS folks, it's Aaron from Fights On here, and today I have a great interview for you. I've got together the two gentlemen from the brand new DCS Zone 5 campaign that's just been launched, a week ago I think it was, guys, is that about right?
2 weeks?
Roughly.
2 weeks, yeah.
2 weeks,
so,
okay.
You probably know one of these gentlemen, famous Dave Bio Baranek, former F-14 Tomcat RIO. The other gentleman, some of you may not know, who is, you would know him as Reflected Simulations, but I'm putting a face to the name here, so introduce yourself, Greg.
Hey guys, it's me, Greg, the guy behind Reflected Simulations, and it's good to be here.
Awesome. So I thought what I'd do today, guys, is actually, I don't think I've ever seen anyone do this before. I wanted to record an interview about the creation of the Zone 5 campaign. So there's already been some really top-notch videos put out by people that have flown in campaigns. I think Growling Sidewinder and a few of the other people have gone out there and done some stuff. But I want to talk particularly for those from the DCS world about what went into making this campaign, because that's something I don't know that a lot of us actually know much about. And Greg's well respected in this space, so he's kind of like one of the gurus. So why don't you start off, guys, by telling me, how did this project first start? Who came up with the idea? Who approached who? What happened?
Greg.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning.
Yeah.
It all began by, actually I have a subscription to Audible, which is an audiobook app, and every month I get a credit and I can buy one book for that, one audiobook. And one day I was just browsing the books and Top Gun Days popped up. I had never heard of it before, and I was like, oh my god, this is the book. I wanna listen to it now. And I listened to it. Then I listened to Before Top Gun Days, and I was fascinated. So eventually, so at that time, I used to write articles for a Hungarian aviation magazine. And then it just clicked in my head, why don't I reach out to Bio? Maybe he would do an interview for this Hungarian aviation magazine. And we did that. And then for a year or two, nothing happened. Sometimes I sent you an email with some silly question about Tomcats or the Navy or whatever, but that was it. And then it all happened, I think, exactly 1 year ago, when I had the idea. I looked at the Raven 1 campaign, Baltic Dragon cooperating with Kevin Miller, turning his book into a DCS campaign, and I thought, that was awesome. But then we could do the same with Bio. So I reached out to him, tried to pitch the idea, but what's the expression? We put a pin in it.
I was reluctant.
Do I look overly surprised?
Do you want me to, Greg? Do you want me to tell some more?
Oh yes, please.
Okay, so we talked about this more recently, but I actually did forget that you were the guy who I did that interview with a few years ago. I mean, I have the interview, but and then I reopened it and I go, oh, I remember that. That's how we met. But I was reluctant to do this. So, Greg, how many campaigns have you done before?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
5.
So I know some are World War II scenario. At least one is Korean War, right?
Yeah.
And so, Aaron, Greg has done these, complex, realistic combat campaigns, and I'm just going, man, that's a lot of work to do strike planning or do mission planning and all that. And, it's been a few years since I did it for real. And I said, I don't know if I can do this for real. So I told him, I was candid with him. I said, it sounds like fun, but I don't know how good I can turn out. And then we talked about it and kicked it around. And I go, well, wait a minute. Flying in the Top Gun class, which is, I went through the class for 5 weeks and then I was an instructor for 2.5 years. And even though that was a long time ago, that's, imprinted. And so I said, that's something I remember well. And I said, all the students that went through, including myself, we all had, 600, 800 hours in jets, and we still found it a challenging experience. So I said, I think we can make a challenging campaign for DCS. I talked to Greg about it, and we kicked it around more and started working on it. Is that about how you remember it, Greg? Is that pretty?
Yeah. As far as I recall, the other concern was classified information, like how much we can control what we share and what we don't share. But then we figured out a way so that we have full control over what we want to share and what we don't.
Would you be able to share what that was? Or is that classified?
I could tell you, but then I had to kill you.
I have to kill you. Yeah, I know. Sure. Never heard that before.
Yeah, just came up with it. So, it's basically the way Bio was doing the briefings in Zone 5 on the way to the range and the debriefs on the way back. So he could word them exactly the way he wanted. So I'll let you speak about this.
You know, it's fun for me to think back about working on this, because once we scoped it, defined it, and Greg said, okay, he'd do all the hard work, and I was just, you know, I had to sit here and remember and think, and I mean, it was fun to work together, and then, but like I said, once we scoped it and defined it, I'm going like, okay, I can do this, and this can really work. So. That's how it began.
12 o'clock high. O'clock low. Shoot him! Shoot him! Shoot him! You got it!
Shoot her down. 142, knock it off. Sniper 3, knock it off. All flights, showtime, knock it off, exercise complete, all flights, RTB.
Obviously, with your background in the Tomcat, it seemed a natural to involve the Tomcat. But as you guys both know, when this started, it was only the B model Tomcat that was out. Whereas Zone 5, for those who don't know, is for the A model only, as I understand. So how did you deal with that, Greg? And I'm asking that question from a DCS perspective.
Okay, so before the release of the A model, it was going to come next month, if you know what I mean. And then
2 weeks, the correct term is.
Exactly, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I thought, why don't we start working and we do, we can set up the missions and everything with the B model. Then changing the unit in DCS is not a big deal. It resets all the radio channel presets, but that's about it all. So it's not a big work to change that. And I didn't want to wait 3 months doing nothing, waiting for the A model. So by the time the A model came, it was almost finished. And by the way, it's not even the final A model. So we're going to have to use the earlier A model with the earlier RAR system. So once that's out, I'm going to have to change it once again.
So does that mean that in theory there would be a B model version of this one day? No?
Nope. It's set in
Any reason?
1987. And
Oh,
it's called
okay.
Zone 5.
Yeah, of course.
But
Only
the other
T-
hand is the Top Gun class flights would be they were the same, you know, A, B, D. So just so from that angle, it's similar.
Okay.
You know, the same scenarios. But also now we can, if you want, we could start talking about the actual structure of the campaign.
Yeah. I was going to say, you know, it sounds like you've had about a year to develop this. So how did you plan it out? Like, if you were a project manager, you would have probably, and I know Bio, you're pretty good on that stuff, but you know, what was the process involved in scripting it and getting it all to happen?
Okay, so the first thing, and Greg, you may have your references, but I opened up the file I have for this project, and the files where I really started working on it was in May of 2020.
Okay.
And so that was about 9 months ago, since this is February 21. The one thing that I did not want to do, even though I am I'm a former Top Gun instructor, but I did not want to say we're putting you through the Top Gun class, because I'm just one instructor. I don't speak for the Navy or for Top Gun, and I go, I don't want to claim that this is a Top Gun class. So I said, well, what can we do that would still be realistic and challenging, but is not, is not trying to replicate the class. So I went with a training detachment. And this is something that the squadron used to do regularly. We would send some jets to a different airfield, and we would fly a series of flights with the squadron's base there. And, we did stuff like that at different places around the United States. So the scene for this one, to make it even more challenging, is the F-16. The set scenario is that the F-16s are new. We want to work them in a detachment or a det environment, and there you have it. Once you lay that down, that's the setting for this campaign.
And of course, it was because of DCS, you guys chose to. Well, Greg, I guess, would have made the choice to hold it at Nellis, of course. So.
But it wasn't really a choice. I didn't have any options.
Well, we did. Yeah, I mean, you didn't have Miramar handy, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
so that's realistic. Also, we used to do training detachments at, like I said, bases around the United States. I mean, it would be unusual to go to Nellis, but it certainly is conceivable. So.
Yeah. Speaking of which, sorry, I was going to say, Greg, have you introduced Bio to the Easter egg at Nellis?
It was partly his idea.
Okay. Tell us more.
Let's not give out any more spoilers.
Oh, okay. No,
there is an Easter egg hidden in the campaign, in every event. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Now you're going to drive people crazy looking for it.
Some have already found it.
I was thinking of a different Easter egg, actually, one that's been in the Nellis map area for a while before Zone 5. Do you know the one I'm talking about, Bio? Sorry, Greg?
I think I do, but go ahead.
That's the UFO hidden somewhere on Groom Lake, I think it is, from memory.
Oh, yeah, in one of the hangars.
Yeah.
It's a little inside joke from ED, yeah.
Yep. Thought maybe it'd be F-14s versus UFOs would be cool, but no. So,
by the way, speaking about Nellis, when the idea originally came to me, I was going to propose that we call the campaign Fighter Town, because it sounds cool. But then Bio told me that Fighter Town is only Miramar, so it would not be wise to call any other base Fighter Town. So then he proposed the name Zone 5, and I liked it, so we went with that.
Yep. And I guess anyone who's seen the Top Gun movie will get that reference as well. They may not know what it means, but all the DCS community will. So how did you plan? So there's how many campaigns is there? I think there. Missions is there. Was it 13 from memory?
13 plus 3 practice scenarios. Yeah.
All right. So can you maybe walk us through a little bit about, as a campaign designer particularly, how you sort of planned each of them, and what did you get Bio to do to help with him? Because obviously he's not a DCS user, so you're doing all of that stuff on the back end. But you would have needed to bring him in not just for his knowledge, but his participation in certain things.
Okay, so one of the other challenge, it was a challenge and also an advantage of using Nellis, that basically every sortie, every event has the same admin procedures, because you start at Nellis, you fly out to the range, something happens there, and you fly back. So the ingress and egress routes are similar. So first we had to nail that down. I found some documents about real life red flag events, and there were some information how people proceeded to the range and back. So I think we started by putting together a script, like a generic script of ingress and egress routes. Who would speak on the radio, what would they say, and then we sent it back and forth with Bio. He would correct it, how he would say it, and once we had that, we only had to figure out what happens at the range. You know?
And that's like the combat, basically.
Yeah, and then we put together the syllabus.
Okay. So
our original script sounded like the script that I wrote for myself when I was a student back in Pensacola. It was, Nellis Air Force Base ground control. This is Navy, Red Wing 1. And it's like, no, you don't talk like that by the time you're in the fleet. It's, more like Nellis ground, blah, 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 much quicker. So
Yeah,
I shortened it up and tried to fleet it up a little bit.
sure.
Yeah, there were a lot of corrections.
So, like, I've done the initial mission, which is just basically you're flying into Nellis for the very first thing, and I have to say it was very cool hearing you do the introduction bio. That was pretty cool, and also visually very impressive. I got lost because I'm DCS useless. I know about it. I'm just not very good at it. But I got lost and managed to figure my way back to Nellis. But the visuals of the ground as you're flying over them are pretty amazing. So if you want a good visual view, it's pretty cool. But you would, I guess, each time you created a mission, you'd have people talking. So is there a process involved? You have to script that out. How do you get people to do the recordings, etc., that kind of stuff? So what's involved there?
You mean the voiceovers?
Yeah.
Yeah, so once we figured out the egress and egress procedures and what happens at the range, I put together an Excel file with all the lines of every actor, and then we had lots of people volunteering to help us out with voice acting. And
I can
again,
imagine.
big thank you to them, because without them it wouldn't have been possible. And then we just put it into a big Excel file. Bio went through it. He corrected everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think you even replaced the numbers with words, so in order to make sure they read it correctly.
Yeah, because there's sometimes when, let's see, how did that work? Oh, there's times when you would say, there's certain times when you'd say something like 350, but there's other times when you'd say 350. And depending on the situation, I wanted the voice actors to say it right. For example, if someone asked your airspeed, we always used to just say, 350, 220, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're talking about a compass heading, you would always say 220. You would never say 220. And so we changed that in the script. So the voice actors had no doubt. Now, a lot of the voice actors are aviation experienced people, and so they would probably know, but I don't know if any of them are fighter or radar controllers, so they may not know that stuff. So
who were some of the voice actors you had? I know there was a few people out of the DCS community. Who were they, and was there anyone outside of the DCS community?
Well, they were all people who got in touch with me through Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
except for the voice of Jester. I got to get in touch with Grey Wolf, who did the voiceovers for Hitler's Jester, in order to so that the voices match when you have the stock Jester callouts and the campaign Jester callouts, so that it's not a different guy.
Okay. Does that mean you actually got him to record stuff for you that you played for Jester?
Yes.
Ah, interesting. I didn't know that. So,
and all the voice actors are listed in the credits, and they're mentioned in the narration.
yeah.
Yes. After the graduation ceremony at the O Club.
Cool. So do you know how many voice actors there were all up?
I can tell
I
you.
can
Let me
count
check.
them right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 13.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
I guess you guys had to write the script for them, send it to them, get them to record it, send it back, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Greg did the basic writing, and then I gave him a review and upcheck on it and sent it out. And then he managed all of the communication with the different actors.
Sure. So, I mean, I've only very briefly dabbled in the campaign builder in DCS. I assume there's an option to put voice tracks in there, Greg. Can you tell us how that happens?
Yeah, there are several ways actually. You can insert a trigger that plays a sound to everyone, regardless if your radio is on or it's tuned to the right channel. But in this campaign, I wanted it to be more realistic. So I set up different stations for Nellis Ground, Nellis Tower, Nellis Approach, Showtime, Blackjack, whatever, they all have a specific frequency, and when you hear a voiceover, it's actually a radio transmission transmitted on that specific frequency. So if you're not tuned to the right channel, you won't hear it.
Ah, interesting.
But it was also
Just like in the real world.
Funny that.
it was a real pain in the neck to set it up this way, but it was worth it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, what little I've experienced so far in the campaign has been very impressive, and I've obviously seen some of the demo videos that people have put up on YouTube as well, and there's certainly a lot of action going on in there. So how long did it take you to do the project from start to finish? It sounds like, I think you said you started in what?
Are we
May?
Finished? Greg, are we even finished yet?
It's never finished. It's only abandoned.
Never finished.
When did you officially start then? Was that back in May last year?
I think it was in May.
You know, that's when I started. You might have done some planning before that, but that's when I sent you some scans of briefing cards and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, I've got the dates on my files here. And when I say scans and briefing cards, we used some stuff that I had saved since the 1980s, just so Greg knew exactly what Navy squadrons were working with back then. And because that material was typical of almost any squadron. And so he took that, put it into the right format, and updated it some, changed it as necessary. But I think we worked from May. I think we most of the heavy lifting was done by around November, December. Wouldn't you say, Greg? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. In November, we started the testing with the help of a few friends. They played the campaign a gazillion times, gave us feedback. I corrected some things. They were also kind enough to record videos of it so that Bio can see the missions as they were happening, so he could give me more feedback on what to change. And I think it was submitted to ED beginning of this year or late December, sometime around that.
Yeah. So it sounds like you had good timing with COVID. You couldn't go anywhere else, so you had to do this almost. So what's the process with ED? Do you need to approach them before? Did you have to approach them beforehand to get the okay to this, or do you just build one and call them up and say, hey guys, I've got a campaign, you want it? Sell it?
Well, I think the official process is to make a couple of missions so that they can check the level and the complexity, and then if they give you a green light, you can proceed with the whole campaign. But I've already produced 4 or 5 campaigns before they know my work, and I think back in May I dropped a mail to Matt proposing this idea, and he said, yeah, it's an awesome idea, go ahead. So they're super helpful, and the process is very easy now.
Yeah. Cool. So maybe let's dive into I know you guys don't want to give away too many secrets in the campaign, but maybe you could tell us a few little snippets out of it, just to sort of whet people's appetite if they haven't gone through it yet.
Well, I've got the syllabus up here, Greg. Do you want me to start?
Sure.
Start with that? Okay, and so Aaron, as you said, we have a warm-up flight. That is when you fly into Nellis at the beginning. Then the first 2 flights are dedicated 1v1s. Then there's a single 2v2, and I hope everybody listening knows that this means, the fighter's always listed first, so it's 2 versus 2. 2 fighters versus 2 bandits. Then we go into 2v unknown, and then 4v unknowns. And then there are a few, and so the scenario becomes more complex with each flight, but in addition, the weapon load changes. And then also we've got outside factors such as whether, and then the fighter mission changes. And the fighter missions, they're, realistic for 1987, and they become more complex in terms of clearance to fire and things like that. So it does get more complex as it goes along, but again, it is realistic. After the 4V unknowns, we get into a couple of special missions. So there's 2 specials at the end, and I'm real happy with the way those turned out too.
Mm-hmm. And is there a graduation and somebody gets awarded the non-official Top Gun trophy?
There's graduation, but there's no trophy.
Ah, damn. Speaking of which,
well, it's a debt. It's not the class. So
yeah, exactly.
No trophy.
So, which leads me to a question that some people may already have, and I know I've seen it a few times on Facebook, and that is that the Tomcats you see don't have standard Navy fighter names and VF numbers, that sort of stuff. Talk us through what happened there. What's the situation there?
Very simple. We just didn't feel like coordinating with the Navy to get permission to use official squadrons.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and you just basically made up names of squadrons that sort of went from there. And who did the artwork for the squadron logos and that kind of stuff?
That's all Greg.
That was me.
I like the squadron names. I like the numbers, the names, and the artwork. I mean, he threw it at me and asked if I had any comments. I said it looks good. So
I know I saw a question, was it from Bill Bartow, asking, hey, what's that? I don't recognize that. And you responded to that bio. So
yeah.
It was good to see some people were being very observant at the time. So,
well, if you want to go for, speaking of the observant thing, and also this is an issue for a few people, we use asymmetric missile loads. In other words, a lot of guys expect to see 2 Phoenix on the belly every time you carry Phoenix. But back in the real world, in my experience, we often would just carry 1 Phoenix.
mm-hmm.
And some people have noticed this and they've questioned, is that realistic? And I say, sure is, And other times I'm looking here at the card, the syllabus card, and we use 3 Sparrows and 3 Sidewinders, instead of 4 and 4. And those decisions in the real world are made based on, what's the expected outcome of this flight. Because if you carry, even 4 Sparrows, and 4 Sparrows is not significant. We could have gone with 4, but I said, no, let's make it harder for them. Let's just give them 3. But every time you add a missile, you add weight and drag, and you reduce your bring back fuel, which on the carrier is a constant concern. Of course, in combat, guys will fight to a lower level of fuel, and you expect to have a lot of tanking and things like that. But I wanted to challenge the player, and so a lot of times we don't load them up with wall-to-wall missiles. We give them a fairly realistic loadout.
Yeah. As I think the phrase that floats around DCS these days is spam ram. I don't know if you've heard that before, Bio, but I'm sure Greg has.
Yeah, but there are no AMRAMs in the campaign.
Yeah, no, I realise that, but it's it's that whole philosophy that some people have. I've got a Hornet, I'll stick 10 AMRAMs on it, and I'll just go crazy firing them off left, right, and centre.
Spray and pray, huh?
Yeah, pretty well. So I know that Greg, you sent me some photos and some video footage from the campaign. So I'll slip some of that in here and there, and might get you to just let me know a few comments on them. Actually, I remember a question I was going to ask you. So, so I know this was new for you doing this bio. Greg's obviously done 4 or 5 of these before. How did you guys actually work together? Because you didn't really know each other that well, and I know bio hasn't had very little involvement with DCS directly. So how did the process of working together go for you?
Well, I think Greg's going to be too modest to admit this, so I will say that he was excellent to collaborate with. One, I had a lot of confidence that he would deliver a good product from just sampling some of his other campaigns. Even though I'm not on DCS, I looked at the videos. Mm-hmm. But also, he's committed to making a good product, and so he would ask me for my input. I would tell him the realistic answer as I recall, or if I did some research and found it. And almost all the time he was able to implement that. A few times we had to talk about things like, this is something we would do or wouldn't do in the real world, but is it still plausible? And so I found him a very good person to collaborate with.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. And
checks
actually,
in the mail.
To answer. So we exchanged lots of emails, like hundreds of emails, but we also had some Zoom calls when there was a specific topic to discuss. For example, when we came up with the syllabus, it was much better to do it on a call than shooting emails back and forth. And we also had lots of shared documents for the scripts, for the briefings and everything. So we could insert little comment in there or update it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And was this the first time you've ever collaborated on a project like this, Greg?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep. Does that mean you might line up and do some more one day?
Yeah, let's hope so.
We need to get some more fighter pilots in. So. I realise you don't want to necessarily give up. What kind of bad guys can we expect in the campaigns? That's number one. And then the second question, just so I don't forget it, is talk us through the process. I know I've seen a few comments about people saying, well, you're shooting them down. That doesn't really happen in Top Gun world. So what was the process there, or the mindset?
Bio?
Okay, the bad guys are F-5s and F-16s.
Mm-hmm.
And they are simulating a range of aircraft, including MiG-21s, MiG-29s, and then several types of Mirages, because even back in 1987, potentially hostile forces operated Mirages. So I think that's most, if not all, of the threats.
Mm-hmm.
Except for one special mission where you don't know what the threat's going to be. And I'll just leave that there.
Yeah.
That's when
you
the alien
know.
Spaceship turns up.
And even
Well,
we
who
don't know
knows?
because it's random, but you will see. And actually, a fun fact about the bad guys. So in DCS now we have this beautiful model of the F-16,
Mm-hmm.
but it cannot carry AIM-7 Sparrows. So what I did was that I used the new F-16 model to take off from Nellis. They usually take a different route to the range than the player. They get deactivated, and by the time you get to the range and face them, those are going to be some of these very old F-16A models from, 10 to 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
because those can carry AIM-7s. And when you return to Nellis, you will see the new F-16s land. It was a bit of a workaround,
Okay,
because we didn't want to use MRAMs.
And so you can't load a Sparrow onto a like a C model Viper, I guess.
No, unfortunately
And
not.
AMRAM
And
wouldn't be realistic. So that's why
Yeah,
we
for sure.
couldn't give them AMRAMs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so how about the other question, which was, in normal, like if you were a real Navy Top Gun pilot in 1987 flying a Tomcat, you wouldn't be shooting each other. I mean, I was reading Paul Nichols' article about when he flew as an adversary at Top Gun, and one of the things that he mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, was how when they were simulating a particular kind of bad guy, they would limit what they could do. So, for example, I think I remember he said if you were simulating a MiG-23, they would say it had a lot of functionality, but it couldn't pull more than 4G, for example. I don't know how much you could do of that, but what was the, I guess for people watching it, thinking, why are you shooting down the Top Gun bad guy? What was the process there?
Well, there have been a very few comments and questions about that I've been aware of. And the simple fact is that, it's fun to blow things up. And we are in a video environment, so let's have as much fun as we can. And of course, you could say, well, there have been a few friendly fire incidents over the years where missiles were inadvertently shot in the training environment. But I'll let Greg give you the technical answer for that also. So that's my operational answer. Greg's got the technical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just read an article. I think, Aaron, it was you sharing it on Fights On about a guy who shot down a British plane because, wasn't it you? In a training environment. And
well,
somebody...
the Aviation Geek Club website had an article about Navy Phantoms where one shot the other one down. And the reason that came about is because the RIO in the plane that got shot down was one of my instructors back in Pensacola. And so I put him in touch with Aviation Geek Club, and he wrote his story. I'll put that on Fights On, Aaron, for you.
Cool.
Okay. So
But Greg, what about the... so why are we shooting planes down?
Yeah, for one, DCS does not simulate, does not support simulated shots, so there are no training shots. And if you make the bandits immortal, so you fire the missile at them, but they don't explode, then they don't register hits either. So that was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the other alternative would have been to call out shots, like, I don't know, Fox 2 on this and that bandit. But imagine setting up a trigger that takes into account the distance, the missile type, the countermeasures used, the angles, the altitudes, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, I would have ended up rewriting the missile code and the weapons code of ED, reinventing the wheel. And why would I do that?
Yeah.
So we said, yeah, let's just blow stuff up. But this being said, I just learned the trick and I updated all the missions so that the player cannot be shut down. So the hit will register on the player, and then Showtime will tell you that you're dead and you have to bug out. But you get to wait for the others, and when the engagement is over, you can wipe your tears and fly back to Nellis.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Fair enough. And like I gave that example there, where you'd have the F-16 simulating the the MiG-23, for example, and saying it can do everything, but it can't do more than 4G. Was it possible to implement that kind of stuff, or was DCS not capable of doing that?
No, it's not possible in DCS.
Yeah, and I don't know if we have any MiG-23s in here. We may not. I think we stuck with airplanes that are fairly similar to the Bandit type.
So we didn't really have to limit them anyway, because they're quite similar.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So if you've got any questions for Greg or Bio about the campaign, we're going to give you a couple of, 2 weeks, guys? Do you think that's enough? 1 week? How long are we going to give them to answer?
A couple of weeks, yeah.
Okay, we'll give them 2 weeks to ask the questions in the Fights On group in Facebook. And what we'll do is we'll reconnect and do a Q&A to answer the viewers' questions, those of you who have either played in the campaign or are thinking of playing in the campaign. So other than that...
And the focus of this should be, making the campaign and things like that. I mean, that's... Yeah. Of course, if we get a lot of other questions and we need to come up with another video chat, well, we'll do it. But I think it's fascinating the way this campaign evolved and the work behind making it. So I'm happy to talk about it too.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, as I said, I really haven't tried. I've very dabbled for about 10 minutes with the campaign builder. So there's obviously a huge amount of capability in the back end there. So I'm certainly really keen to learn more about that at some stage. So if anyone's got any questions that are related to that, this is probably the perfect opportunity for you to ask them and for the gents to answer them. So,
yep.
Alrighty, cool. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to include some video footage and some photos from the stuff that Greg sent me, just mixed through the interview. But other than that,
and I sent you a few files also. You can use those if you want.
I've got some great photos and bios, so that's great. We'll use those. All right, gents. Thanks for your time. Great to catch up with you both, and job well done, I must say. I'm looking forward to working my way through it as I learn how to fly the Tomcat and not crash.
Hey, Greg, I miss working on this. That was a fun project, and so I'm glad it's out and it's being well received right now.
It definitely was. Fun. So yeah, it was good to see you guys and talk to you.
Same here.
Yeah, likewise. All right, guys, you have a great day, and I will catch you later.
Okay. See you.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
That bandit is dead.
12 o'clock low.
Sniper, fuck you. All flight showtime. Knock it off. Exercise complete. All flights on TV.